I've been seeing a lot of celebrities speaking out, such as Kanye West and Orlando Brown, and they're talking about things that, that are happening to them and how they've been cut off from, having money and seeing their families. A lot of them have been destroyed because they spoke out about these different groups are targeting them. And I want to talk about some things because I myself have seen a lot of stuff over the years because little did I know, I've been fighting. Well, Illuminati and Freemasons have been fighting against me for about 15 years now, and they have destroyed my life. And I want to talk about how they destroyed my life and everything I've gone through because, see, God had me doing the work for his people. He told me his people were in bondage, and I didn't know that this was Illuminati that I was going up against. And I'm going to talk about how this all started. And I'm going to talk about some secrets that I've found out, and I'm sharing this today because I'm fed up, and it's time that God's people know the truth to bring them out of bondage. Now, I had written a book with all the stuff in here, and the devil blocked it. He blocked my everything because he knew what God was using me for. He made it so people won't even know who I am. He made it so people cannot find my book, that people won't read my book, people won't look me up on social media. He blocked and cut me off in every area. When I talk about my life has been destroyed, it's something similar to what, like I said, the celebrities who are speaking out now, when they said they've been cut off, completely cut off. I was cut off from everything. And they have taken everything from me. They've made it so I can't have a job. They attack me on jobs. They made it so, I don't have my children. They took my children from me. They try to call me crazy and label me as crazy. They kept me as a recluse. They kept me ostracized and cut off. Anytime anyone tried to talk to me or date me, it's like I would go on one date and the person all of a sudden would turn against me or would never call me again. It's like they were scared away. And it's like I've not been able to have relationships. I've been pretty much cut off from society except for my family. And that's what they've done to me because I've been fighting for God's children who are in bondage. Now, I want to talk first about this Illuminati, Freemasons. What it is the Lord was showing me this is something that started in America as a way to give certain precedence to a certain group of people who wanted to be wealthy. They wanted to hold themselves as elite and have all the wealth and power. They wanted to oppress other groups of people, specifically targeting black people because they didn't want them to have anything, and poor people, they oppressed them. And so they made these sacrifices and they given up things to Satan, served Satan and worshiped him in exchange for their wealth and their power. And the high level elites, because this is in tiers, the high level elites are the ones who own the money. They own all the businesses and the corporations. They own the wealth. They run the banks and all that stuff. Then they have the middleman. Well, the ones who are willingly involved in the elite, they know what they're doing, and they'll do their little things in exchange to get Satan's wealth. They might, participate in rituals or do satanic things and practice sorcery and help oppress other groups of people who are not a part of Illuminati. Those are the second tier people, but they're still answering to Satan and the high elite who are calling the orders. Then you have those like regular people like me and you who are just working. A lot of them don't really know what's going on. Some of them who are not susceptible to it can easily be controlled and influenced to do the work of Satan and can be controlled by the elite without even knowing it. So I'm going to tell you how they have kept people in captivity. When the Lord first showed me this, I had moved into a city of Richmond Heights, Ohio. I was in this neighborhood. It was a nice suburb, which would appear to be a nice suburb. I wanted to raise my children there because I thought they'd get a great education, that they would thrive in this suburb. And I was working for this insurance company. I was making good money and getting good benefits at this insurance company. And I was living in this apartment because I was able to get a discount to lease this apartment that I was at. And I got it through my job because they have employee perks, so they give me a discount. When I leased this apartment, it looked like a great apartment on the outside. When they showed it to me, it looked nice. I thought, oh, this is a great apartment. This looks great. And it was owned by this big management company in Ohio that owns a lot of apartment buildings in the northeast part of Ohio. And so the Lord started showing me things as I was noticing things, how, a lot of times, the laundry room, when I go to the laundry room, the washer and dryers weren't working. People would have to end up driving to an actual laundromat and could not even use the washers and dryers. Things in the apartment would break down, and we would contact the leasing office and then put in maintenance requests, and they wouldn't come and fulfill it. They would take a long time to get to it. You have to make numerous requests for them to come. A lot of time they didn't even come at all. And you know, the apartment just wasn't what it seemed. I mean, when they leased it to us, it was completely different from what they showed us. And I would notice as I was talking to other people, people who have been there for a long time, they would complain about the place. I'm like, well, why don't you just leave? And they said they had been trying to leave for a while, that they just can't leave. And they were talking about their finances. They were having problems with their finances. And the Lord started showing me that they were in a bondage. And he was showing me how a lot of these corporations who are owned by these elite people, by the Illuminati, that they'll put people in bondage. They'll hold them in these apartments. They'll have them there. They'll keep collecting rent off of them, keep raising the rent, charging them rent. A lot of times they don't even fix up the apartments. They don't do the necessary repairs. And they're targeting people like lower income, middle class people, and mostly predominantly black people who are, or you know, minority people who are either disabled or people on disability, and they were targeting these people to oppress them. And so he was showing me how a lot of them could not leave because they were putting out sorcery. They were attacking their finances. They were using their rent checks and their money orders and everything they have to attack them and keep them in a bondage. Me, myself, like I said, I had a great job and I was making good money, but I couldn't keep account of my money. I was noticing that no matter what, I always didn't have enough money. I couldn't save. And I'm like, where's my money going? And the Lord started showing me to pray over my money before I submit my rent checks. He said, pray over your money, because they're using it to keep you in a bondage. They were taking our money and they were praying over it, loosening stuff over it so that people could be stuck there. Because a lot of people wanted to leave. They wanted to buy homes. They wanted to move elsewhere, and they could not because they were keeping them in this bondage to keep them there so they can keep getting money off of them, even though they were oppressing them and not fixing up the place. So the Lord just started leading me. The Holy Spirit was saying, my people are in bondage, just start praying, pray. And so I started praying. The Holy Spirit in me was just leading me to pray. It was like in my spirit. He didn't literally talk to me, but in my spirit, I feel the Lord saying, pray. So I started praying, and then he had me walk around. I would walk around this apartment building. I would anoint the grounds. And as I started doing this, I kept doing this. I was doing this for like several months, and I was noticing people would start coming up to me, and they were like, one lady came up to me who had been trying to move for years, and she says, oh, I just bought a house. I'm leaving. I'm like, really? Wow. And the Lord showed me that the bondage was breaking off these people. More and more people started moving out. And so that was one of the ways where I was getting people out of bondage. And so the school there was another thing happening with the school where I noticed the school, the children, it was more black children at this school, even though there was some white children there. It was mostly predominantly African-American children at this school. And the Lord was showing me things like when my kids would go to the school, I would notice that they would walk in a single file line. They couldn't say a word. Like, it was so controlled. And I know that other kids are doing work and studies and they can be distracted. But this got to the point where the kids would go into the lunchroom, because I would visit the school all the time and be up there with my kids and stuff. And I would volunteer for things because I was just that type of parent. And I was noticing when they were in the lunchroom, the kids couldn't talk. Like, some of the kids would try to get up and go over to their peer and try to talk or say something to them. And you would see the lunch aides barking at them, yelling at them. These are mostly Caucasian women, and they would bark at them and say, hey, sit down, you can't talk. And I was just confused by that, like wondering, why can't the kids talk? It's lunchtime. I mean, that's usually with me when I was in school. That was our free time. It was time to release all that stress. You've been in class all day working, and now you finally get this break. And we would talk. Lunchtime is our time where we would talk and play around and joke around with our friends. And I was asking them, I was questioning, like, well, why can't they talk? They said, oh, that's only for recess. They can't talk. And so the Lord was showing me how this was so controlled and how they were treating them like that, because these were mostly black children, and they wanted to put them in this controlled atmosphere. It's like a form of oppression. And I, at first, was thinking, okay, it's the teachers, but he was showing me how these are principalities that are operating over this entire school. And so you go back, if you go back decades and centuries, there are demonic spirits controlling a lot of these institutions, because you don't know what's been going on, the things, the sacrifices that's been made, oaths and covenants made over these environments and institutions, things that were going on during slavery, and that has now passed on to where we are now, and it's still going on. If those spirits are not broken, it's still controlling the people in that environment. And that's what the Lord was showing me. And so he was telling me to pray for the children. My son would come home because he was very goofy and funny and humorous. He loved to play, and he loved school, and he liked to joke around and horseplay. He had this best friend who was a Caucasian boy, and they would horseplay all the time. And sometimes my son would come home and tell me, oh, well, he was playing with so-and-so. And he says, well, they told him to stop, but they didn't say anything to his friend. And so I was like, oh, well, why? And so I started going there, observing the school. And I would notice the same thing. I would see that my son and other of the children would have to sit still. But these were black children. They were mostly telling them to sit still. And then you would see the Caucasian kids running around. They wouldn't say a word. And so I was observing and seeing all this, and I saw that bondage over them. And the Lord was just telling me, start praying about the school.